rarely does a single work fundamentally alter an entire genre. But fighting games can be entirely separated into two eras: before Street Fighter II and after. Prior to 1991, fighting games as a genre could almost exclusively be called karate games, with the only amendment being games trying to rip off Bloodsport, starring Jean-Claude Van Damme, specifically. Street Fighter II hit the video game world like a nuclear bomb, so fully formed that most of the things it popularized are still generally the way games in its genre work today, just refined to different aims. Shortly after its release, a small development team that had been trying to make several games based on Jean-Claude Van Damme movies that kept falling through, were able, thanks to Street Fighter II's success, to successfully pitch a fighting game with a Van Damme-esque character to Midway. But they set out to be different than Street Fighter in almost every way, with Mortal Kombat. Instead of colorful animated characters, they designed a game with large, digitized sprites of real people, and set out to make it as wildly over-the-top violent as possible, with crunched bones, spurting blood, ripping limbs, and complicated finishing moves called fatalities, which featured graphic and gory cutscenes to finish matches. This garnered a lot of moral panic controversy, and was the primary game that inspired the Entertainment Software Rating Board. The team crafted a bigger and better sequel, which, thanks to controversy, was required to have green blood on some home ports, and was banned outright in Germany. Part of the reason some of these insane fatalities hit so hard was because of the vivid, digitized sprites, where seeing a real, actual person get their spine ripped from their body felt more intense than just a simple cartoon character. By 1997, though, the series had become just a normal, familiar part of the landscape, putting out several versions of Mortal Kombat 3, and having inspired 2 PG-13 feature films. Capcom's senior director of communications even called it the Pepsi to Street Fighter's Coke. 1997 also saw the release of Mortal Kombat 4, which removed the digitized sprites of real people for an animated, three-dimensional world. 3D gaming was the new, fresh hotness at the time, but the technology was so new. Now, looking back, it feels like watching a talkie in the early days of sound filmmaking. Stiff, kinda ugly, utterly unrefined. The artistry of 16-bit gaming had truly been mastered, and now they were starting from scratch. 3D technology moved so quickly that between MK4's original release in 1997 and an expanded port called Mortal Kombat Gold for the Dreamcast in 1999, the 128-bit hardware, the most powerful to exist up to that point, provided the best-looking iteration of this series entry, and yet was also considered a bitter disappointment when compared to the visuals of, for instance, fellow Dreamcast launch title SOULCALIBUR. Gold promised every character from the original MK4, as well as the return of 6 classic characters that hadn't been seen in 3D before, including Kitana, Mileena, Cyrax, Sector, as well as Baraka and Kung Lao, the latter two being my mains as a kid for MK2 and MK3, and I had been bitterly disappointed when neither was present in the original release of MK4. But all the nostalgic additions in the world couldn't make up for its stiff, limited control scheme. Comparing it to the breathtaking fluidity of SOULCALIBUR, or the vibrant chaos of Power Stone, MK Gold absolutely felt like something from a less developed era. Gold also does try to modify the weak-ass weapon system from MK4, but somehow makes it even less useful, as it takes seemingly ages to ready it, in a forum where you need to be fast and efficient, something SOULCALIBUR implemented incredibly. Befitting that dated status, MK4 also wasn't literally 3D. The character models were, but the world was one-dimensional, with none of the free-range movement that SOULCALIBUR and POWER STONE provided. After a half-decade run where audiences received the first 4 major MK releases, as well as 2 hit expanded ports, and a much-maligned single-player game, there would be no new prime MK fighting game from 1997 until 2002's Deadly Alliance. And in 1999, it just felt like nobody was clamoring for yet another port of MK4, expanded or otherwise. Jeff Gerstmann, writing for GameSpot, even said in his new release review of MK Gold that it, quote, felt like a retro game, like pulling out some old thing you haven't played in years, and it hasn't aged gracefully. Even worse, the original launch day release of Mortal Kombat Gold was packed with glitches and bugs, including the inability to save your progress in any way. They released a revised version about a month later with a red-tinted disc that said "Hot! New" on the cover, trying to fix the issues. But by that point, it just didn't feel like anybody had any reason to be looking in on a years-old Mortal Kombat port in 1999. It had rid itself of its beloved aesthetic, while stepping into an arena it was ill-prepared for, with a shined-up but clunky, dated relic of past glories, especially in sharp contrast to the innovations being made elsewhere. MK4 always felt transitional, something of the runt of the franchise, and a slightly expanded version for a console capable of so much more. There just really isn't any reason to spend your time or money on Mortal Kombat Gold. Next time, hop on your belly and slide along with the devil's favorite demons.